in Hollywood, it's impossible, in Hollywood, it's impolite to tell someone you know they're lying. I was with Peter above sunset. A friend was making pizzas from scratch. An actor came over. After 10 years, he'd finally landed a part in a pilot. We all talked in vague terms about dreams and unions. Peter was optimistic. Peter knew how to edit, how to hang lights, how to use a camera. He could act, but he could also write. He knew how to do enough things that he wasn't so beholden to anyone else. He didn't need to be anointed. Sometimes he went running while listening to podcasts. He was engaged with the world and beautiful. Then I walked the steps back down to Sunset and met Matthew in a bar, and we talked about writing and dreams and what will happen to books. Matthew was founding an online literary magazine. It had started to rain. The rain didn't stop. We waited the next day for the gallery to open. There were the missing scenes of River Phoenix from my own private Idaho played on a screen behind a large curtain. Giant paintings by Gus Van Sant. That's hard to read. This type is very small. The paintings were beautiful. Everybody congregated in the back where the drinks were free, or in the middle where you could smoke, or in the front where the celebrities stood just inside the door. Smaller celebrities circling bigger celebrities, like moons. And what was I? I didn't think this, but I was like all the other hangers-on, hoping to be the asteroid that passes through the atmosphere and maintains enough integrity through sheer mass to crash into the larger planet at such a velocity as to break off a chunk of the Earth and create another heavenly body in the sky. That's how the moon was formed. Or I remember someone telling me something like that, but they never equated it to Hollywood or any form of art or commerce. In fact, when someone told me the story of Earth's moon, a story I've never bothered to check, it was told as a tale of coincidence. There was no intent, no yearning, no yawning hole waiting to be filled, just mass and friction and speed, once every 100 million years, or something like that. So I grabbed a sleeve and said I was going. I felt embarrassed. I'd been standing there, and someone said, "Well, why don't you meet us at dinner?" And I drove through the rain, and the valet asked for a password, and I gave the password, but I wasn't on the list. So I stood under the awning with the host, waiting for the next wave to arrive. Everyone was pleasant. 4 or 5 girls holding umbrellas and telling me not to worry. It would all be taken care of in a moment or more. They said I was patient, and I said, "I don't mind standing out here with you." We were dry under the awning, and there was a heat lamp, and a famous artist arrived who wasn't on the list, or I think he was famous. I'd never seen him before, and he had an accent. He was German or Dutch. He couldn't believe how the girl was treating him and screamed that he would get her fired, but she was as kind as anyone I'd ever seen, and though she couldn't let him in, he would get in soon enough. He said, "I'm being rained on," and she said, "Stand closer to the lamp." He said he wanted her card. He would report her to her superiors. I thought, of everyone I've met in Hollywood this past week, I want to be the least like him. And then the movie star arrived and whisked us all inside, and I whispered in his ear, "Your artist friend is a prick." Much later, after eating tiny hamburgers and small bits of fish and being photographed and speaking my name into the camera, which contained a recording device, I was driving the star's parents and grandparents to the next party and opening at a bar. We talked about adapting work from one medium to another, books into plays into films. It was raining so hard I could barely see. Another car came skidding toward us and almost took off the front of Josh's car, but just missed and careened off into West Hollywood. The grandmother hadn't fastened her seatbelt. I had a moment where I imagined a life that unfolded differently following the accident, but it didn't. Instead, we turned on Fairfax. I thought, no one can see in this weather, but we're all trying to get somewhere anyway. Hollywood Boulevard was closed. The father asked about the future of books. It was the second time in 2 days it had come up, and I said I sent an email almost every day to 5,700 people. It was the damnedest thing. I escorted the parents into the bar, and the head bouncer told the other bouncer to get me anything I needed. He thought I was with the family, which was true, but it was just because I offered a ride, and I didn't really think they'd accept. So when Matthew showed up, I went outside to get him. By then there was a line and everyone was on the list, but it didn't matter. It was at capacity. I said, let him in. He's with the family too. That's This one is from December 30th, 2010. I guess it's not that long ago either. That's just a few months ago. There comes a time in every relationship where you're walking by a pet store and your girlfriend wants to stop inside. She takes a choke collar off the rack, pulls it over your head, gives a tug on the end of the leash. A salesman stops to ask if he can help. She says no, we'll take it. Last night I was talking with Alex. I said, I'm a metaphor for a normal person. She said, this is a metaphor for a normal conversation. I was standing in a puddle of vodka, 6 floors above the Hudson. The walls were made of glass. I came to New York on a red-eye, Christmas night. Someone asked me why, and I said, when I was 15, I applied to bag groceries at the Dominick's. They asked if I could start right away. Christmas was coming, and I had plans that night with my older friends who had a car. I said no, and they said I should call them in 2 weeks. When I called, the job was gone. Last night we talked about lobsters. There was a girl arguing with a boy. She said she loved him. She thought he was a genius. I didn't like the term. I thought, there are a lot of geniuses. I thought, it's rare, but not precious. It's not a good reason to love someone. It's harder to find a woman with a wardrobe full of latex who's only attracted to cross-dressers and has her own dungeon space than it is to find a genius. We all know a genius or two. That's the tragedy of the genius. That's not enough. Whatever your talents, it's likely there are others just as talented. Maybe not many, but some. In literature, certainly, the singular voice is far less common than the stunning debut, the author of great promise. So, we were at this party, and the girl told her boy that his sister had told her not to marry him. And she said, maybe I shouldn't have told him that. I do love him. I think he's a genius. I kept coming back to, I think he's a genius. He's the smartest person I know. And then we say it's not a competition. Good person, bad person, genius. It's all wrapped around this idea of birthright, that we're owed something because we're special. It's not enough that a tiny sperm waged a terrifying campaign against overwhelming forces and succeeded in populating the egg. The coincidence of our existence isn't enough because everyone we see had the same fortune. And we want more than that. Even if we're not geniuses, we want to know geniuses. All those geniuses who fall short, the great writers who never finish their books, the guitarists who quit the band, the masses are writhing with potential. We're owed a better life. I'm going to read one more if that's okay. This is from July 27th, 2010, so we're kind of going back in time. Just imagine you're on this website and you sign up to get this email thinking you're going to get links to various articles, and some guy starts sending you these ridiculous missives on his weird sex life and thoughts. I'm at the Desiree Sex Workers Alliance in Las Vegas. This morning I was walking down Flamingo to Las Vegas Boulevard past a sign that says Ellis Island Casino, an advertisement for a $6.99 steak dinner. A lot of haphazardly parked trucks. Not far away stood the giant buildings of the Strip, and I was struck by the impossibility of writing about this city. What hasn't been written about Vegas? We all know that following the war, or the melting of the ice caps, or some other disaster of our own making, this is the place that will be excavated. And it's based on these buildings. Circus, the Venetian, Caesar's Palace. The conclusions about our culture will be drawn. I was with a friend last night in the Bellagio. I wondered if she felt as small and underdressed. It's such a place, money being no object. Quickie breast implants by the finest surgeons in the world. Spray-on tans that never fade. The men wear perfectly tailored shirts tattooed to their skin. We walk through a fluorescent mushroom garden. 12-foot butterflies slowly flapping their wings past the shops, all the most expensive of the best-known brands, and approached the wedding chapel. Let's do it, she said, sliding her arm through my arm. Okay, I said. I mean it, she said. So do I. She looked at me. Her face pinched in a laugh, and I smiled casually. The chapel was closed. There are other places, I said. I said, open 24 hours. She asked if I was serious, and I said I was. She knew I was, just as I knew she wasn't. And then I told her a story about driving through Las Vegas with my fiancé 15 years ago. And my fiancé said, let's just get married right now. It was late at night. We were young, in a big car that got terrible mileage. The gauge was broken, so you had to guess when you were low on gas. I hesitated, and we kept going, somehow, getting caught in a blizzard outside of Salt Lake City, which makes me think it wasn't Vegas at all. It was Reno. She asked if I regretted not getting married 15 years ago, and I said absolutely.
Right? What stays in Vegas, stays in Vegas.
Not today. Today, it's coming to San Francisco. She asked if I regretted not getting married, and I said absolutely. We were stepping out of the Bellagio. Her hand was holding my arm, and I touched it with my other hand, and she said, don't go too far. In front of the casino, the water was dancing, but my friend was bored, so we continued back to our quiet hotel with low ceilings and poorly dressed hookers who looked like us. She said she was going to set me up with someone. I said I was probably going to be in a wrestling video with a woman who specializes in wrestling porn, and she was welcome to watch. We talked about jealousy. I said Vegas feels like the back of an exhaust pipe. I said the first time I came through this town, I was 14 years old and spent 3 days in jail. She said I looked tired. We talked about diets and sex and how do you know when you're with the right one? What if the right one comes along but you pass them up, hoping for something better? And then time passes. We talked about the politics of sex and having sex to prove a political point. We talked about community and volunteer work. It's always like this, I said. She said she was going to take a shower, and I said I would shower with her to save water. After all, we're in the middle of the desert. This place is an ecological disaster. Ha ha, just a joke. Hug, door, goodbye. Thank you.